So I do not know the full context for this video, and I do not know the name aside from Tyrone for the person who made this video, or at least that's the name given to him by the person who tweeted this. I do not know a lot about it, but I do know that this clip was sent to me, and content warning, trigger warning, there's going to be transphobia here, not from me, ideally, unless it's by mistake, but it is going to be from this guy. And again, this one was sent to me, so I don't have tons of context, but I do want to talk about this particular argument and why it's a bit of an issue. So let's begin with this. But again, remember the content warning, remember the trigger warning. If you're not a fan of dealing with that kind of content, then please, self-care is more important than any of this.
Hello, haters! Anaslats brings you this important news. If you have a penis, you're a male. Biology doesn't care about your feelings.
Okay, so what is the problem with this argument? I'm sure somebody in the audience has already figured it out. But the problem with this argument is that when somebody argues that they are a man or a woman, they are usually not talking about biology specifically. They're talking about their identity. They're talking about here. They're talking about what happens up here. Your identity happens here. Now, let's ignore the fact that having a penis does not mean that you're male either, because truthfully, if you want to argue sex, there's one indicator that is looked at mainly by biologists, and that is gametes. Do your gametes produce sperm? Do your gametes produce egg? That is the factor you're looking at. They're not looking at does have penis or does not have penis. Now, if we're talking about sex on the whole, not just the specific gametal marker, then there are more things to look at besides just that. Because now we've got to look at your gametal structure. We have to look at your chromosomal structure, which is, of course, what he's showing here. This is a Fiverr guy who's paid to read scripts. Oh, okay. So it's not... It's literally this person here, Anna Slats. It's literally them arguing in favor of this. Just having this up here. So I'm just criticizing the argument and not the person, I guess. Still, this is a bad thing to read. But I guess we're still going to go through it. There's still an argument to be had here. There's still a conversation to be had here. When we're talking about sex, we're not just talking about gametes. We're talking about chromosomes. We're talking about your phenotypical expression. We're talking about your gonadal expression. We're talking about, multiple things. It's not just about whether or not you have a penis. It's not just your genitalia representation. This is one of the reasons why I'd argue that sex is bimodal. We have two extremes. We do have things like Klinefelters and XXY and stuff that sit in this valley in the middle. They are rare, but they still happen. But we do still have two extremes that we can look at. Now, why does this matter? This is generally a straw man argument put forth against trans people, arguing that they are their biology. But gender, which is the largest component of being trans, your identity, gender has nothing to do with biology. There are associations, there are correlations, but your identity itself is not tied to your gametal structure. I know my identity is not tied to it. It happens to coincide with it. That's why I'm cis. But at the end of the day, when somebody's making this argument, they're making what's called a transmedicalist argument. This is usually a straw man trying to conflate sex and gender. Usually when this happens, it is a conflation of sex and gender. And since this is somebody being paid to read a script, we can read a lot into what Anna Slats thinks, I suppose, through this script. Now, if you were simply trying to argue that sex is determined one of these two ways, and you're just trying to give that information out, that wouldn't be transphobic. That's just arguing about biology. Whether it is binary or bimodal, that is a conversation that can be had. I am in the camp that it is bimodal, and I have a few friends who are in the sciences who also agree that it is bimodal. That does not mean anything in and of itself, though. That's just, the people I'm around. But when does this turn into a transphobic argument? When do we find out that it's being framed specifically to hurt trans people? Well, this is when.
Feelings. Cry harder. Tough gang. Rise up.
That's when. That's the moment when. That's the moment when it goes from this is just when the defense of he's just explaining basic biology turns into no, this is being used as a weapon to hurt trans people. This is just being used as a weapon. That's all. The motivation here is not to explain biology to someone. The motivation here is not to clarify something to someone. The motivation here is not to help someone. The motivation here is to harm. It is to be derogatory. It is not to inform. It is not to give clarification. It is not to help. It is to hurt. It is to harm. It is to hinder. It is to strawman the experience of trans people, try to link all of their experiences and identity to their biology extrinsically, instead of accepting the fact that their identity is not always attached to their biology, and then weaponize the biological argument, the transmedicalist argument, strictly to make their lives worse. You're not trying to help trans people here. You're trying to harm them, and that's it. That's what a TERF does. They don't try to make things better for women. They try to hurt trans people through the lens of being a feminist, through the lens of helping women. It's like saying you're a feminist, but you don't think black women deserve the vote. You're not a feminist at that point. You're just a bigot. Using the lens of feminism to hurt people. A lens that is supposed to be used for egalitarianism. That is supposed to be used to help make sure that things are more equal between sexes and genders. Instead, being used to be exclusionary, exclusatory, and damaging. And it's disgusting. Hopefully, the content warning was available and useful to people, but I find stuff like this gross. I think it does nothing but hurt trans people. It does nothing but undermine their experiences as individuals. And I would hope that the person who was paid to read this script understands that and can think about what he's done. But somehow I doubt it. It's one thing to say transphobic shit and to be a piece of garbage like that. It's another thing to pay someone on Fiverr to say your transphobic garbage and then post it on Twitter in this giant celebratory fashion. It's gross. It's absolutely repugnant. And I don't think there's much more I can say on it than that. So, and I don't want to advertise Patreon or anything at this point for this one, because that just, I'd feel dirty doing that. So let's not do that. So yeah, I'm gonna go wash my eyes.